You wake up on Christmas morning, 1756, in a village so small it doesn't even have a name on the maps. Just a cluster of wooden houses huddled against the Dutch countryside, where the wind bites through wool like a knife through butter. The sky is the color of old pewter. Snow crunches under your boots as you step outside, breath fogging in the air, and you notice something strange. The windmill on the hill is spinning. Not unusual, you think. Windmills spin. That's what they do. But this one hasn't turned in 3 years. Not since old Henrik died and left it to rot. Sails hanging limp like broken wings. The village tried to sell it. No one wanted it. Too far from the road. Too close to the woods. Too full of ghosts, some said, though no one could explain what that meant. But now, on Christmas morning, the sails are turning. Slow, methodical, like someone inside knows exactly what they're doing. You're not the only one who notices. By noon, half the village is standing at the base of the hill, staring up at the windmill like it's grown a second head. The sails creak in the wind, casting long shadows across the snow. No smoke rises from the chimney. No footprints lead to the door. Just the steady, rhythmic groan of wood and canvas. Turning, turning, turning. Someone squatting, says the blacksmith, arms crossed. Probably a vagrant or a thief. On Christmas? Ask the baker's wife, clutching her shawl. What kind of person works on Christmas? No one has an answer. So you all stand there, breath rising in clouds, watching the windmill spin like it's mocking you. Then, just before sunset, a child shrieks. She's pointing at the base of the windmill, where the snow has been disturbed. Not by footprints, by something else. You push through the crowd, heart hammering, and there it is. A wooden toy soldier, hand-carved, painted red and gold, lying in the snow like it fell from the sky. The child picks it up, eyes wide. Where did this come from? No one answers, because no one knows. By evening, 3 more toys appear. A wooden horse, a porcelain doll with glass eyes, a tiny spinning top painted blue, all scattered around the windmill like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale. The village elder, a man so old his skin looks like parchment, squints at the toys and mutters something in dialect. You don't catch all of it, but you hear one word clearly: Spielgoedmaker, toy maker. There's no toy maker here, someone says. Not for 50 years. Then who made these? Ask the blacksmith, holding up the soldier. Who's in that windmill? The elder doesn't answer. He just stares at the spinning sails, jaw tight, like he's remembering something he'd rather forget. That night, you can't sleep. Not because of the cold, not because of the mystery, but because you swear you hear something coming from the hill. A faint, rhythmic tapping, like a hammer striking wood. Over and over and over. You pull the blanket over your head and try to ignore it, but the tapping doesn't stop. By morning, the village square is full of toys, dozens of them. Wooden trains, rag dolls, miniature houses with painted shutters, all arranged in neat rows, like someone staged an exhibition in the middle of the night. The children are ecstatic. The adults are terrified. This isn't natural, whispers the baker's wife. Toys don't just appear. Maybe it's a gift, suggests a young mother, clutching her daughter's hand. Maybe someone's being kind. Or maybe, says the elder, voice low and sharp, someone's trying to be remembered. You ask what he means. He doesn't answer, just turns and walks toward the windmill, cane tapping against the frozen ground. You follow. So does half the village. The door to the windmill is unlocked. It swings open with a groan, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling up into darkness. The elder steps inside without hesitation. You're not sure if that makes him brave or foolish. The interior smells like sawdust and beeswax. The walls are lined with shelves, all of them packed with toys in various stages of completion. Half-painted dolls, unfinished trains, wooden animals missing ears or tails. It's a workshop, a real, functioning workshop. And it's been here, hidden, for who knows how long. At the top of the stairs, the elder stops. You push past him and see it. A man, old, bent, hands gnarled like tree roots, moving with the precision of a surgeon as he carves a tiny rocking horse from a block of pine. He doesn't look up, doesn't acknowledge the crowd gathering behind you. Just keeps carving, shavings curling onto the floor like snow. Who are you, you ask. He doesn't answer. Just holds up the rocking horse, inspects it in the pale light, and sets it on a shelf with a dozen others. The elder steps forward. His voice is barely a whisper. Peter. The old man pauses, just for a moment, then goes back to carving. Peter's dead, says the blacksmith. He died in the fire, 40 years ago. Then who, asked the elder, voice cracking, is this? The man finally looks up. His eyes are pale, clouded, like he's seeing something no one else can. And he smiles. Not a warm smile, not a kind one, but the smile of someone who's been waiting a very long time to be found. I never stopped, he says. His voice is dry, cracked, like paper left too long in the sun. I just moved inside. The windmill creaks, the sails turn, and somewhere deep in the woods, a clock strikes midnight. If this feels too real, subscribe before the toys start appearing in your house too. Peter van der Meer was supposed to die in 1716. That's what the village records say. That's what everyone remembers. A fire, his workshop. The smell of burning wood and varnish so thick it choked the air for days. They found the remains of his tools in the ashes. A charred workbench, melted hinges, nails fused into twisted sculptures. But no body. Probably burned to nothing, the pastor said at the time. God rest his soul. And for 40 years, that was the end of it. Except it wasn't, because here he is, standing in a windmill that shouldn't be occupied, carving toys that shouldn't exist, looking at you like you're the ghost, not him. You died, says the elder, voice shaking. I saw the workshop burn. I was 12 years old. I watched it collapse. Peter sets down his chisel, runs a hand over the rocking horse, smoothing invisible imperfections with calloused fingers that know every grain of wood intimately. The workshop burned, he says slowly, each word deliberate. I did not. Then where have you been? Here. He gestures around the windmill with one hand, the other still holding the horse like it might escape. Where else would I go? The village didn't want me before. Why would they want me after? The silence that follows is suffocating. You can hear the wind outside, howling through cracks in the stone, the creak of the sails, the faint scrape of wood shavings under someone's boot. Someone coughs. No one moves. You've been here, says the blacksmith, voice flat with disbelief, for 40 years. Peter nods, give or take. I stopped counting after the first decade. Time moves differently when you're alone. Days blend. Seasons repeat. You measure life in finished toys, not sunrises. Why? He doesn't answer immediately. Just picks up another block of woodpine, you think, though you're no expert, and starts carving. The knife moves with impossible precision, shaving away curls that fall like snow. His hands don't shake, don't hesitate. They know exactly what they're doing. Because the children still needed toys, he says finally. And no one else was making them? That's insane. Someone mutters from the back of the crowd. Peter smiles again. That same dry, papery smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Is it? You found the toys, didn't you? The children played with them. Loved them. No one asked where they came from. You just took them and moved on with your lives. He's right. You remember now. Over the years, toys would appear. Not often, not in large quantities, but enough. A doll here, a wooden train there. Always around Christmas, always anonymous. Sometimes on doorsteps, sometimes in the church. Once, memorably, inside a coffin before it was sealed, a toy soldier for a boy who died too young. The village assumed they were donations, gifts from a passing merchant, or maybe the church receiving them from distant benefactors. No one thought to question it. Why would they? Timeless doesn't require investigation. Why hide? Asked the baker's wife, voice softer now. Why not just live here like a normal person? Why pretend to be dead? Peter's hands stop moving. He looks at her with those clouded, unblinking eyes that seem to see past skin and bone into something deeper. Because I wasn't supposed to survive, he says quietly, and there's something in his voice, not regret, not quite sadness, but something heavier. And people don't like things that refuse to die. They get uncomfortable, start asking questions, making assumptions. He pauses, studying the half-carved block in his hands. Besides, he continues, the dead can work in peace. No one expects conversation from a ghost. The words hang in the air like frost crystals, sharp and cold. You step closer, boots creaking on old floorboards. The workshop is meticulous. Every tool has its place, hung on pegs or arranged in careful rows. Every toy is cataloged, sorted by type and completion stage. Rows of wooden soldiers stand at attention. Stacks of dolls wait for faces. Miniature furniture is arranged like a dollhouse village, complete with tiny chairs and tables no bigger than your thumb. It's not the work of a madman. It's the work of someone who never stopped caring. Someone who found purpose in precision. Where do you get the materials? You ask, running a finger along a shelf. Dust comes away on your skin. He gestures toward the back of the windmill, where shadows pool thick. Fallen trees. Scrap wood. People throw away more than they realize. Broken cartwheels. Fence posts. Barn doors that rotted through. One man's trash, as they say. He pauses, considering. And the windmill provides the rest. The windmill? It grinds grain, he says, like it's obvious. Or it did, when Henrik was alive. Now it grinds whatever I need. Sawdust into powder. Powder into paint base. I mix pigments from berries, clay, crushed stone. You'd be surprised what you can create when you have time and necessity. He holds up a half-finished doll, its cheeks stained a delicate rose. The color is perfect, natural, like a real child's blush. 40 years, the elder whispers, leaning heavily on his cane. You've had 40 years of this, alone, in secret, making toys for children who don't know your name. More or less, and no one knew. No one suspected. Peter shrugs, shoulders moving under his worn shirt like bird wings under cloth. I didn't want them to know. People ask questions. Questions lead to problems, expectations, obligations. I just wanted to work. To make things? Is that so terrible? No one answers, because honestly, you don't know anymore. The walk back to the village is silent. No one speaks. No one even looks at each other. You just trudge through the snow, boots crunching with mechanical rhythm, breath fogging, minds racing with the same unspoken question that pulses like a second heartbeat. What now? The elder walks ahead, spine rigid despite his age. Cane striking the ground with such force you half expect it to crack through ice. The blacksmith follows, jaw set, fists clenched so tight his knuckles have gone white. The baker's wife clutches the rocking horse Peter gave her like it might explode in her hands, or disappear, or transform into something else entirely. And you're just trying to process what you saw. what you heard, what it all means. A man who died 40 years ago, still alive, still working, still making toys with the dedication of a monk transcribing scripture. No explanation offered, no apology given. Just the quiet, relentless rhythm of a knife on wood, of hands that refuse to stop creating. By the time you reach the village square, the sun is setting. The sky is streaked with pink and orange and deep purple, the kind of light that makes everything look softer and more beautiful than it actually is. The toys are still there, scattered across the snow like evidence at a crime scene awaiting investigation. Wooden trains, rag dolls, spinning tops, all waiting. The children have been playing with them all day. A boy races a wooden train along an imaginary track, making whistle sounds with his mouth. Two girls cradle rag dolls in their arms, whispering secrets and giving them names. A toddler spins a top, laughing with pure delight as it wobbles and falls, then demands his father spin it again. And again, and again. They're happy. That's the thing that sticks with you like pine sap on skin. The children are genuinely, completely happy. The elder stops in the middle of the square, turns to face the crowd that's formed behind him. His voice, when he speaks, is low and steady and carries the weight of someone who's made too many difficult decisions in his long life. We need to decide, he says. Do we tell them? Do we tell everyone what we found? Tell them what? Asks a woman holding a baby against her chest. That the toys came from a dead man? That he's been living in secret for 4 decades? That'll terrify them. The children will have nightmares. Or comfort them, says the blacksmith, though his voice lacks conviction. Maybe they'll think it's a miracle, a gift from the other side. God working through mysterious ways. Or maybe, says the baker's wife quietly, but with surprising firmness, we just let them keep playing. Let the children have their toys. Let Peter have his piece. What harm has been done? Really? Can anyone name a single injury caused by this? Everyone turns to look at her. She stands straighter under their gaze. He's not hurting anyone, she continues, voice gaining strength. He's been here for 40 years, and we never knew. Never suspected. The toys are beautiful, well made. The children love them. They bring joy. What's the harm in letting him keep working? What's the harm in allowing one old man his solitary purpose? The harm, snaps the elder, color rising in his weathered cheeks, is that he's a lie. A ghost. A man who should be dead but isn't. That's not natural. It's not right. It goes against God's plan. Neither is kindness, she says. Not in this world, but we take it where we can get it. We accept it. We don't interrogate every gift. The argument stretches into the evening. Voices rise and fall like tide against shore. Some want to expose Peter, drag him into the light, force him to explain himself, make him justify 40 years of secret generosity. Others want to leave him alone. Let him work in peace. Let the children keep their toys without taint of knowledge. You don't say anything. Just listen. Watch the way the villagers circle the same points over and over, like dogs chasing their tails, never quite catching them. Watch the way fear and wonder battle in their faces. Finally, the pastor speaks. He's been silent until now, standing at the edge of the crowd with his hands folded, face unreadable as scripture. There's a story, he says slowly, carefully, like he's picking his way through a minefield, from the old texts. Not the Bible, older, about a man who gave away everything he had, bit by bit, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of him. And when he died, no one remembered his name. But they remembered his gifts. They remembered the feeling of being cared for by invisible hands. He pauses, looking around the square, at the children still playing, at the adults still arguing, at the toys scattered in the snow like fallen stars. Peter Vandermeer has been dead for 40 years, the pastor continues. At least, that's what the records say. That's what we believed. And yet, every Christmas, children receive toys. Beautiful, handmade toys. No one asks where they come from. No one questions the kindness. We just take it, accept it, move forward. He looks directly at the elder. Maybe, he says softly, that's enough. Maybe some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Maybe some ghosts are too kind to exorcise. The elder opens his mouth to argue. You can see the words forming. The protests, the theological objections. Then he closes it, shakes his head slowly, turns away. The blacksmith follows. Then the baker's wife. Then everyone else. One by one, the crowd disperses, returning to their homes, their fires, their lives, their comfortable certainties. And in the morning, when you wake, the toys are gone from the square. Not destroyed, not discarded, just distributed, tucked into homes, placed on shelves, given to children who squeal with delight and clutch them tight and don't ask where they came from. Because children, blessedly, don't need explanations for joy. The village chooses silence, not out of fear, not out of ignorance, but out of something deeper, something older than words. The understanding that some mysteries are better left unsolved. 3 months pass like water through fingers. Winter thaws into spring with that particular violence only seasons understand. The snow melts, revealing muddy roads and patches of defiant green grass. Ice breaks up in the canals with sounds like bones cracking. The village returns to normal rhythms. Planting, fishing, mending. All the small tasks that fill lives. The windmill stops spinning. Not immediately. Not dramatically. Just gradually. The sails slow over days. The creaking becomes intermittent, then rare, then stops entirely. And one morning, you wake up and realize you haven't heard it in a week. Maybe more. You're not the only one who notices. Maybe he's done, says the blacksmith, hammering a horseshoe with rhythmic clangs that echo across the square. Maybe he finally moved on, found peace. Or died, mutters someone else, voice low enough to pretend they didn't mean to be heard. Again, for real this time, no one goes to check. Not at first. There's an unspoken agreement, invisible as air, but just as real. An understanding. A boundary. Peter made his choice to hide. The village made theirs to let him. Best to leave it at that. Best not to poke at wounds that have scabbed over. But curiosity is a relentless thing. It doesn't respect boundaries. Doesn't honor agreements. It just gnaws and gnaws until you can't ignore it anymore. 2 weeks later, you find yourself walking up the hill. Not because you have to. Not because anyone asked you to. Not because there's any practical reason. Just because the silence is louder than the windmill ever was, and it's driving you slowly mad. Because you need to know. Even if knowing changes nothing. The door is still unlocked. It swings open with the same groan, revealing the same narrow staircase. The same smell of sawdust and beeswax. But something's different. You can feel it even before you see it. The air is stiller, emptier. The workshop is bare, not abandoned, not destroyed, not ransacked. Just empty. The shelves are stripped clean. The workbench is clear of tools and materials. No toys in various stages of completion. No wood shavings curled on the floor like question marks. Even the smell is fading, replaced by the musty scent of disuse. It's like someone erased 40 years of work in a single night. Took a cloth and wiped the slate clean. You climb the stairs slowly, heart pounding with something between dread and hope. Each step creaks under your weight. half expecting to find Peter slumped over his bench, knife in hand, finally at rest, finally allowed to stop. But he's not there. No body, no note, no explanation carved into the wood or painted on the walls. No final message. No goodbye. Just an empty room and a single wooden toy on the windowsill, catching the pale spring light. A rocking horse, hand-carved with that meticulous attention to detail you've come to recognize. Painted red and gold. The exact same one the baker's wife took 3 months ago. Or perhaps its twin. It's impossible to tell. You pick it up carefully, as if it might crumble. Turn it over in your hands. Run your fingers along the smooth curves, the precise joints, the tiny painted details. On the bottom, carved in letters so small you have to squint to read them, is a single word. Bedankt. Thank you. In Dutch. In Peter's careful, precise hand. You set it down carefully on the windowsill where you found it. Look around the empty workshop one last time. The bare shelves. The clean floor. The abandoned space. And then you leave, closing the door gently behind you. Outside, the windmill stands silent against the spring sky. The sails hang motionless. The door creaks softly in the breeze, as if breathing. As if the building itself is resting after decades of secret industry. Peter van der Meer is gone. Really gone. This time. And no one knows where. No one saw him leave. No footprints lead away from the windmill. No one in neighboring villages reports an old man passing through. He simply vanished, as completely as if he'd never existed. As if the past 40 years were a collective dream. You walk back down the hill slowly, the wooden horse heavy in your pocket. You took it. You're not sure why. Perhaps as proof. Perhaps as memory. Perhaps because leaving it felt like abandonment. That evening, you place it on your mantle. Don't tell anyone about it. Don't explain where it came from. Just let it sit there, catching fire-eyed silent witness to something you barely understand. Days pass, then weeks. The village moves on, because that's what villages do. What people do. They adapt. They forget. They fill the empty spaces with new concerns, new gossip, new small dramas. But sometimes, late at night, you look at the rocking horse, and you wonder, where did he go? Did he die finally, his impossible extension of life reaching its natural end? Did he simply walk away, seeking a new village, a new windmill, a new secret workshop? Is he somewhere else now, carving toys in darkness, leaving them for other children in other villages to find and love and never question? Or was he never real at all? Was he some shared delusion? Some manifestation of collective need? You don't know. You'll never know. And somehow, that feels right, appropriate. Like the only ending this story could have. Because Peter van der Meer didn't want to be known. Didn't want recognition or fame or understanding. He just wanted to work. To create. To give. And he did that. For 40 years, he did exactly that. The rest, where he came from, where he went, why he hid, whether he was man or ghost or something in between, none of that matters. The work matters. The toys matter. The joy they brought to children matters. Everything else is just noise. Just questions without answers. Just mystery for mystery's sake. And maybe that's enough. By summer, the story starts to spread like seeds on wind. Not officially. Not through proclamations or announcements or any formal channels. Just whispers at first. Travelers passing through, picking up fragments. A merchant here, a peddler there. Someone's cousin visiting from 2 villages over. They hear about the toys, about the windmill, about the old man who may or may not have died 40 years ago. And they carry the story with them when they leave. Did you hear about the village near Utrecht? The one with the windmill? Yeah, apparently there was a toy maker living there. A dead one. That's ridiculous. How can a dead man make toys? I don't know, but the toys are real. My brother-in-law saw them. Said they were the finest he'd ever seen. The story mutates as it travels, the way stories always do. Gets embellished, distorted, smoothed at the edges. By the time it reaches Amsterdam, Peter isn't just a toy maker. He's a saint, a spirit of generosity, a guardian angel who delivers gifts to children on Christmas. Some versions say he died in a fire and returned from heaven, granted special dispensation to continue his life's work. Others say he made a deal with the devil his soul in exchange for the ability to create perfect toys forever. A few claim he was never human at all, just a manifestation of Christmas itself, taking physical form to remind people of the holiday's true meaning. The details don't matter. They never do. The story does. Because stories, unlike people, don't need to be true to survive. They just need to be told, repeated, passed from mouth to mouth like communion wafers, sustaining something deeper than fact. Within a year, other villages start reporting similar phenomena. Toys appearing overnight with no apparent source. Anonymous gifts delivered to orphanages. Mysterious benefactors who work in darkness and vanish by dawn. Some say it's Peter, that he didn't die or leave, but multiplied somehow. Split himself into pieces and spread across the countryside, working in 100 windmills, 100 workshops, 100 secret places. Others say it's copycats, people inspired by the legend. Ordinary craftsmen who heard the story and thought, I could do that. I could bring joy without credit. I could be generous without recognition. Both explanations are probably true, or false, or somewhere in between. You don't know what to believe anymore. All you know is that every Christmas Eve, without fail, a single toy appears on your doorstep. A wooden soldier, a porcelain doll, a spinning top, a miniature house with working shutters. Always hand-carved with that distinctive precision. Always painted with natural pigments. Always anonymous. You never see who leaves them. You've tried. Stayed up all night several times, watching through the window, determined to catch the gift giver in the act, but you always fall asleep. Just for a moment. Just long enough. And when you wake, the toy is there, waiting. You keep them all. Line them up on a shelf in your home. A growing collection. A physical record of mystery. Sometimes visitors ask about them. Where they came from. Who made them. You just shrug and say, gifts. And leave it at that. Because what else can you say? That you think a dead man has been secretly delivering toys to your house for years? That you believe in something you can't explain? People would think you're mad. Maybe you are. But the toys are real, solid, undeniable. So something is happening. Something beyond normal explanation. By 1760, the Windmill becomes an unofficial pilgrimage site, not sanctioned by the church. The pastor would never approve worship of what amounts to a folk legend, possibly heretical in nature. But people come anyway. Travelers, merchants, families with children in tow, hoping for blessings or miracles, or just a good story to tell. They climb the hill, peer through the windows into the empty workshop, leave offerings at the door like it's a shrine. Wooden crosses, carved trinkets of their own. Letters addressed to the toy maker, asking for intercession, for healing, for luck, for guidance. Some leave toys, poorly made but earnest, like they're trying to prove they understand the lesson, that they're worthy students. The village elders hate it. This is idolatry, the pastor grumbles during services. We're encouraging superstition, pagan practices. This isn't Christianity. But they don't stop it, because they can't really. And because, if they're being honest, the pilgrims bring money. They buy bread from the baker, rent rooms from families with space, pay for guides to show them where the toys first appeared, where the workshop was, where Peter supposedly lived and died and lived again. The village, which spent decades barely scraping by, subsisting on fishing and farming and modest trade, suddenly has an economy built on a ghost story, built on mystery and wonder and the human need to believe in something larger than themselves. You watch it all happen with a strange mixture of amusement and dread, because you were there. You saw Peter with your own eyes, spoke to him, heard his dry, paper voice, watched his gnarled hands carve with impossible precision, and he wasn't a saint, wasn't a spirit or angel or manifestation of divine will. He was just an old man who refused to stop working, who found purpose in creation, who chose solitude over recognition. But that's not the story people want to hear. They want magic, miracles, evidence that the world is kinder and stranger than it appears. Evidence that dedication matters, that giving without expectation of return is possible, that some people really are better than the rest of us. And who are you to deny them that? Who are you to say, actually, he was just a man, stubborn, obsessive, possibly mad, nothing supernatural about it? Because maybe they're right anyway. Maybe choosing to work in secret for 40 years, asking nothing, expecting nothing, is its own kind of magic. Maybe dedication that profound is indistinguishable from divine. Maybe the line between man and legend is thinner than anyone wants to admit. One autumn evening in 1763, 7 years after finding Peter in the windmill, a scholar arrives from Amsterdam. He's young mid-20s at most, with intense eyes and ink-stained fingers. Carries a leather satchel bulging with notebooks and what looks like half a library. His name is Hendrik Janssen, and he's writing a comprehensive study of Dutch folk traditions. He finds you in the tavern, introduces himself with formal courtesy that feels out of place in this rough wooden room smelling of beer and sweat, and asks if you'll tell him about the toy maker. You sip your ale slowly. Consider lying. Consider telling him you don't know what he's talking about. Decide against it, because what's the point? The story's already out there, growing, metastasizing. One more retelling won't change anything. There's not much to tell, you say. But you saw him, didn't you? You were one of the first to enter the windmill. One of the witnesses. He's already pulling out a notebook, pencil poised. I've interviewed 17 people so far. Your name keeps appearing in the accounts. I saw an old man making toys in a windmill. That's all. Was he kind? You consider the question. Remember Peter's clouded eyes, his dry smile, the way he held each toy like it was precious, like it mattered more than his own life. He was dedicated, focused. I'm not sure kindness is the right word. Did he speak of God? Of miracles? Of why he was chosen for this task? He spoke of children needing toys. Nothing more mystical than that. Hendrik scribbles furiously, his pencil making rapid scratching sounds against paper. And the fire? The one that supposedly killed him in 1716? The church records are very clear about it. It happened. I've seen the records myself. His workshop burned. They found tools in the ashes, but no body. But he survived. Apparently. How? How does a man survive a fire that destroys his entire workshop? That burns hot enough to melt metal? You shrug. He never said. We never asked. Maybe we should have, but at the time, it seemed intrusive. He clearly didn't want to discuss it. Hendrik leans forward, eyes bright with intellectual hunger. Don't you see? This is extraordinary. A man survives a fatal fire through unknown means, hides for 40 years in plain sight, emerges to deliver gifts on Christmas like some pagan spirit, then vanishes again without trace. It's the perfect mystery, the perfect intersection of history and legend. Or, you say slowly, setting down your ale, it's just what happened. No mystery, no grand meaning. Just a man who wanted to work in peace. Nothing just happens, Hendrik insists, with the certainty only the young and educated possess. There's always a reason, a pattern, a deeper meaning. We just have to find it. That's what scholarship is, finding the truth beneath the surface. You finish your ale. Stand. Feel your joints protest. When did you get so old? Maybe, you say. Or maybe some things resist explanation. Maybe sometimes the truth is simply, this happened and no one knows why, and that's all there is. Hendrik watches you go, disappointment flickering across his face like candlelight. But you know he'll write his study anyway. He'll fill in the gaps with speculation and comparative analysis. He'll draw parallels to other European legends. He'll cite sources and build theories and turn Peter into a symbol of something larger, something academic, something that fits into neat categories and scholarly frameworks. You leave him there, hunched over his notebook in the tavern's dim light, and step out into the autumn evening. The air is crisp. Leaves crunch under your boots. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. Hendrik stays in the village for 3 weeks. You see him everywhere, interviewing the baker's wife, examining the church records, measuring the ruins of the windmill with pieces of string and making notes about structural dimensions. He even tries to dig through the ash, looking for what? Evidence? Proof? Some physical trace that will make sense of it all. He finds nothing but dirt and charred wood. Before he leaves, he seeks you out one final time. You're mending a fence when he approaches, that same leather satchel under his arm, now even more stuffed with papers. I think I understand, he says without preamble. Peter van der Meer was traumatized by the fire, suffered some kind of psychological break. Hid in the window because he couldn't face society. The toy making was therapy, a way to maintain sanity through routine and purpose. You hammer another nail. Don't look up. Maybe. It makes sense. It explains everything. The secrecy, the obsessive work, the eventual disappearance when the trauma finally became too much. Does it? You do look up now. Does it explain why the toys were so beautiful? Why children loved them? Why he kept working for 4 decades with no recognition? Hendrik falters. Well, the quality suggests he found meaning in the work. Purpose. And that's enough for you? Purpose as explanation? It's rational. It's based on known psychological patterns. It's boring, you say bluntly. And it misses the point entirely. What point? That maybe Peter didn't need a reason. Maybe he just loved making toys. Maybe that's the whole story. Love, dedication, work. And maybe trying to explain it, to reduce it to trauma or psychology or anything else, kills what made it special in the first place. Hendrik stares at you for a long moment. Then he closes his notebook carefully. You're saying I should stop searching for answers. I'm saying some questions don't have answers. Or they do, but the answers are disappointing, insufficient, and maybe the mystery is more valuable than the truth. He leaves the next morning. You never see him again. But 23 years later, in 1786, you hear that he died, alone, in a room in Leiden filled floor to ceiling with notebooks. Still searching, still analyzing, still trying to solve the puzzle of Peter van der Meer, his comprehensive study. The Toy Maker of the Windmill, a study in postmortem philanthropy, is published posthumously in 1788. It's 847 pages long, dense with footnotes and citations and comparative analysis of similar legends across European cultures. 17 people buy it. Most don't finish reading it, because Hendrik made the same mistake scholars always make. He confused explanation with understanding. He thought that if he could categorize and analyze and contextualize, he would somehow possess the truth of what happened. But truth and meaning aren't the same thing. You can know every fact about a thing and still miss its essence entirely. Hendrik knew everything about Peter van der Meer, or at least everything that could be known from records and interviews and archaeological examination. He knew the dimensions of the windmill, the types of wood Peter preferred, the pigments used in the paints, the approximate number of toys produced. What he didn't know, what he could never know, because he was looking in the wrong direction, was what it felt like to hold one of those toys, to see a child's face light up, to witness anonymous kindness ripple outward like circles in water. You know this because you've lived it, because you still receive a toy every Christmas, because you've watched 3 generations of children play with Peter's creations or creations inspired by his, and seen how joy doesn't need provenance. Hendrik wanted to solve Peter. You've learned to simply accept him. One night, a few months after Hendrik's death, you dream about the scholar. He's sitting in that tavern again, surrounded by notebooks, but this time Peter is sitting across from him. Not speaking, just carving. Shavings falling like snow onto Hendrik's careful notes, covering them, erasing them, until there's nothing left but the quiet sound of knife on wood. Hendrik keeps asking questions. Why did you hide? How did you survive? What does it mean? Peter never answers, just keeps carving. And somehow, in the dream, you understand that this is the answer. The work is the answer. The dedication is the answer. The toys themselves are the answer. Everything else is just noise. You wake up with tears on your face, and you're not sure why. But you go to your shelf of toys, 37 of them now, accumulated over 3 decades, and you run your fingers over each one, feeling the grain of the wood, the smoothness of the paint, the precision of the joints. And you think, Hendrik wasted his entire life searching for something he could have understood in a single moment of paying attention. The tragedy isn't that he never found the answer. The tragedy is that he was holding it the entire time and didn't recognize it. You place the toys back on the shelf carefully, reverently, and you make a decision. If anyone else comes asking questions, searching for explanations, trying to solve the mystery of Peter van der Meer, you'll tell them the same thing. The mystery is the point. The not knowing is the gift. Some questions are more valuable unanswered. And maybe the greatest act of scholarship is knowing when to stop searching and start wondering. It happens on December 24th, 1762, 6 years after the village found Peter in the windmill. 3 years after he vanished without trace or explanation. The fire starts just after midnight. No one sees it begin. No lightning strikes splitting the sky. No fallen candle. No obvious cause. Just suddenly, impossibly, the windmill is burning. The flames are visible from the village, even at this distance. Orange and gold against the black winter sky. Bright enough to cast shadows across the snow. Bright enough to wake people from sleep. Someone you never find out who rings the church bell. Not the normal pattern for services. The emergency pattern. Fast, urgent, desperate. Shouts echo through the streets. People pour out of their homes, some still in night clothes, grabbing buckets and blankets and anything that might help fight a fire. You run with them, heart pounding, breath fogging, boots slipping on ice. But by the time you reach the base of the hill, panting and sweating despite the cold, it's already too late. The windmill is an inferno. The sails have collapsed inward, sending sparks spiraling into the night sky like demonic fireflies. The wooden frame groans and cracks with sounds like bones breaking. The heat is so intense you can feel it from 50 feet away, like standing too close to a blacksmith's forge. It drives the crowd back, forces you to shield your face with your arm. No one tries to enter. There's no point. Nothing could survive that temperature, that intensity, that complete consumption. The village forms a ragged circle around the burning structure, standing in the snow, watching it burn. Some people pray, lips moving silently, hands clasped. Some cry, tears freezing on their cheeks before they can fall. Most just stare, faces illuminated by the flames, eyes reflecting orange light, wondering if this is punishment or release, divine judgment or natural conclusion. The fire burns all night. You stay the entire time, unable to look away, unable to go home to warmth and safety while this happens. Others drift away, eventually cold and exhaustion, driving them back to their houses. But a core group remains, witnesses, keeping vigil. By dawn, there's nothing left but ash and twisted metal. The stone base of the windmill remains, blackened and cracked from the heat, covered in soot. Everything else, the wooden frame, the sails, the workshop, 40 years of hidden work is gone. Erased as completely as if it never existed. The elder, now 80 years old and bent like a question mark, arrives as the sun rises. He walks through the ruins with a stick, using it to poke at debris, to shift aside ash, searching for something, anything, some trace of Peter, some evidence. You watch him from the edge of the destruction. Don't have the energy to help. Don't have the will. He finds it in the center of the ruins, where the heat was most intense, where nothing should have survived. A small wooden box, charred on the outside, edges blackened, but somehow intact. Preserved as if by miracle or intention or sheer stubborn refusal to burn. The elder carries it out carefully, cradling it like a baby, and sets it on clean snow away from the ash. His hands shake as he opens it. Inside are 12 toys, perfect, untouched by the flames that consumed everything around them. A soldier standing at attention, a doll with painted glass eyes, a horse mid-gallop, a train with miniature wheels that actually turn, each one wrapped in cloth that shows no signs of burning. The crowd gathers around, staring, and beneath the toys, carefully folded, is a piece of paper. When the elder unfolds it, you see writing, careful, spidery, the handwriting of someone whose hands shake with age but whose mind remains clear. The elder reads aloud, voice cracking, for the children. Always for the children. I am finished now. The work continues without me. Thank you for your silence. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for letting me work in peace. May you find the same grace when your time comes. No signature. No name. Just that. The elder closes the box carefully, reverently, like he's handling scripture. Hands it to the pastor, who has arrived wearing his ceremonial robes despite the early hour. Bury it, the elder says, voice hoarse from smoke and emotion. Or display it. I don't care anymore. But don't let anyone forget what this was, what he did, what it meant. The pastor nods slowly, takes the box, holds it against his chest. And that evening, after a hasty consultation with the church council, he places it on the altar. Opens it so everyone attending Christmas service can see. The toys gleam in the candlelight, somehow still beautiful, still perfect, still radiating that quality of careful creation that characterized all of Peter's work. These, says the pastor, voice steady despite everything, despite the strangeness, despite the impossibility, are the last works of Peter van der Meer, toymaker, ghost, spirit, man, whatever he was, whoever he was. These are his final gifts to us. He left them not as a miracle, not as a test of faith, but as a simple gift, the kind of gift that expects nothing in return except perhaps to be remembered. He pauses, looking out at the congregation, at faces you've known your entire life, at children and adults and elderly, all gathered together on Christmas Eve, all touched somehow by this mystery. And we will honor that gift, the pastor continues, by continuing his work, not by making toys, though some of us might, but by understanding what he understood. That giving without recognition is possible. That working in service of joy is its own reward. That the best things we do might be the things no one ever knows we did. The congregation sits in silence. Some nod slowly. Others look uncertain, uncomfortable with this theological gray area. But the decision is made, spoken into existence by someone with authority. From that night forward, everything changes. The village dedicates itself to toy making, not immediately, not dramatically, but gradually, like snow accumulating one flake at a time until suddenly there's a drift. It starts with Willem, the baker's eldest son. He's 14 and apprenticed to his father, but his heart isn't in bread. Never has been. He watches the toys on the altar every Sunday and thinks, I could do that. I could make things that matter. He starts carving in his spare time. Clumsy at first. His knives slip. His proportions are wrong. A horse looks more like a dog. A soldier looks like a melted candle. But he keeps trying, keeps practicing, keeps failing and starting over. His father discovers the hobby and, instead of punishing him for wasting time, says, if you're going to do this, do it right. Talk to old Martin. He used to carve pipe stems. He might teach you. Martin does teach him, shows him how to choose wood, how to read the grain, how to let the knife follow what's already there instead of imposing your will. He's patient, kind, shares knowledge accumulated over 70 years of working with his hands. Within 6 months, Willem produces his first decent toy, a simple horse. Nothing spectacular, but solid, functional, something a child could actually play with. He leaves it on a neighbor's doorstep on Christmas Eve, anonymous, unsigned. The next morning, he sees a little girl playing with it, galloping it through snow, making horse sounds, completely absorbed. And he understands what Peter understood, that this feeling watching joy you created but can't claim is better than any recognition, any fame, any reward. He keeps making toys, gets better, gets faster. By 1765, he's producing 20 toys a year, then 30, then 50. Others notice. Others join. The blacksmith's wife starts sewing rag dolls. The fisherman carves boats that actually float. The widow Hoffman makes miniature furniture so detailed you can open the drawers. They don't advertise, don't form a guild, don't establish official rules. They just work, share techniques, help each other. And on Christmas Eve, they distribute toys throughout the village and to neighboring communities. Anonymous, always anonymous. They call themselves, quietly, without any official declaration or ceremony, Peter's children, not because they knew him. Most didn't, but because they understand what he taught through example. That creation for its own sake is holy. That giving without credit is powerful. That work done in service of joy is never wasted. By 1770, the village is known across the region for its toys. Merchants come specifically to buy them, not because they're cheap, they're not, but because they're extraordinarily well made, because they last, because children love them. The village prospers, not wealthy, not extravagant, but comfortable, secure, the kind of prosperity that comes from having a purpose larger than survival. And every Christmas Eve, without fail, Peter's children gather at the ruins of the Windmill. The stone base is still there, though weathered now, covered in moss. They light candles. Place toys at the center, not the same toys, always different ones, the best of that year's work. Leave them there overnight. By morning, the toys are gone, taken by travelers, by the poor, by whoever needs them. No one guards them. No one tracks who takes what. The point isn't ownership. The point is circulation. The point is that joy should move freely. Someone you never find out who. though you suspect Wang carves a marker and places it at the ruins. Simple, unpainted. Just words carved into oak. Here worked Peter van der Meer, toymaker. Teacher example 1716 to 1756. The work continues. The dates are probably wrong. No one knows when Peter was born. No one knows when he really died. But the dates don't matter. The intention does. In 1774, a grandmother brings her grandson to the ruins. She's 72. He's 6. She was one of the children who found toys in the snow that first Christmas morning in 1756. She still has her wooden doll. Keeps it wrapped in cloth in her dresser. Takes it out sometimes and remembers. This is where the magic happened, she tells her grandson. Though magic isn't quite the right word, and she knows it. This is where someone showed us that giving is better than taking. That making is better than destroying. That love can be expressed through work. The boy doesn't understand. Not really. He's too young. But he listens with wide eyes and touches the marker reverently, like it's a holy relic. 20 years later, he'll be one of the best toy makers in the village. Will produce work so fine that collectors from Paris request pieces. But he'll still leave his best work anonymous on Christmas Eve, distributed to children who will never know his name, because that's the tradition now. That's what it means to be one of Peter's children. By 1780, the tradition has spread beyond the village. Other communities hear the story, adapt it, make it their own. Toy-making cooperatives form in Bavaria, in Alsace, in Yorkshire, each one slightly different, each one adapted to local culture and needs. But all of them share the same core principle: creation for its own sake, giving without expectation, work as prayer. Some of these communities explicitly invoke Peter's name. Others don't know the origin of the tradition. They just know it feels right, feels meaningful, feels like something worth doing. And in a way, that's the greatest testament to what Peter accomplished. Not that people remember him, but the people embody what he believed without even knowing where it came from. The idea has become larger than its source. The tradition has transcended its origin, which is precisely what Peter would have wanted. You think about this often as you age, as you watch Peter's children multiply and spread, as you see the tradition strengthen and evolve. As you witness something that started with one stubborn old man in a windmill become a movement, become a culture, become a way of life, and you realize Peter didn't just make toys. He made a template for how to live, for how to work, for how to give. And that's immortality. Not your name surviving, but your values surviving. Not being remembered, but being embodied. By 1780, the legend has spread far beyond the Netherlands, carried on merchant ships and trade routes like seeds on wind, taking root in foreign soil, growing into something new and strange and familiar all at once. It reaches Bavaria first. A traveling priest hears the story in Amsterdam and carries it back to his parish in the mountains. He tells it during Christmas Mass, embellishing freely, adding angels and divine light and miraculous resurrections, because that's what his congregation expects, what they need to hear. Within a year, a carpenter named Klaus builds a workshop inside an abandoned church tower. He makes toys for orphans exclusively, refusing all payment, working only at night by candlelight. When he dies 3 years later, people swear they still see lights in the tower, hear the sound of hammering. Some bring their broken toys and leave them at the base of the tower. By morning, the toys are repaired. No one can prove who does it, but the repairs are real. The broken becomes whole. In Provence, the story transforms again, becomes French, becomes Catholic in a specifically French way. All mysticism and philosophy and revolutionary ideals mixed together. A nobleman named Jean-Baptiste renounces his title in 1783, gives his estate to the poor, and converts his mill into a toy workshop. He employs only those society has discarded: former prisoners, reformed prostitutes, disabled soldiers. They make toys, sell them at cost, donate the profits to orphanages. Jean-Baptiste never mentions Peter by name. Probably doesn't even know the original story, but he's living it anyway, embodying it, proving that the same impulse can manifest independently across cultures and borders and languages. In Copenhagen, a widow named Ingrid loses her husband to a shipwreck. She's 42 with no children and a house too large for one person. She could remarry, could sell the house, could do any number of sensible things. Instead, she converts the house into a workshop, employs only widows like herself. Women's society expects to fade into invisibility. They make toys together, share techniques, share grief, transform loss into creation. Ingrid dies in 1791. The workshop continues, still run by widows, still making toys, still proving that work can be healing, that purpose can emerge from pain, that what you build matters more than what you've lost. These imitators multiply, spread like mycelium underground, invisible connections forming a vast network. By 1785, there are toy-making workshops in at least 40 European cities and towns. Some know they're part of a larger tradition. Others think they're innovating, inventing something new. Both are right. Both are wrong, because traditions don't work like that. They're not copied. They're not transmitted whole. They're reinvented constantly. Each person takes the core idea and makes it their own, adapts it, changes it, improves it or simplifies it or twists it into something almost unrecognizable. And somehow, mysteriously, the essence survives the mutations. The core truth propagates even as the details shift. You watch this happen with fascination and something like awe, because you knew Peter, spoke to him, saw him work. And these imitators, these spiritual descendants, they never met him, never saw the windmill, never held one of his original toys, but they understand him anyway. They've grasped something essential without needing the origin story, without needing provenance or authentication or direct lineage. They just feel it, know it, live it. In Milan, a former soldier named Giuseppe opens a workshop in 1788. He lost his right arm at the Battle of Luzzara, thought his life was over, thought he was useless. Then he heard a version of Peter's story filtered through 3 languages and a dozen retellings, barely recognizable, and thought, I can still work with one hand. I can still create. He specializes in simple toys, things that don't require fine detail. Wooden blocks, ball and cup games, rolling toys pulled by string. They're not sophisticated, not delicate, but children love them because they're sturdy, indestructible, made to withstand the chaos of actual play. Giuseppe never becomes famous, never earns much money, but when he dies in 1802, 300 people attend his funeral. Parents whose children played with his toys, other craftsmen he trained and encouraged, strangers who just wanted to pay respects to someone who made the world slightly better through quiet, persistent work. That's the pattern you notice. The imitators who succeed, who really embody what Peter taught, they're not the ones seeking fame or recognition. They're the ones who just work, who find satisfaction in the work itself, who give without expecting return. The ones who fail are the opposite. The ones who heard the story and thought, I can use this. I can build a reputation. I can market myself as the new Peter van der Meer. They produce inferior work, advertise heavily, claim divine inspiration or direct spiritual lineage, charge premium prices, and they fade, quickly, forgotten almost immediately, because you can't fake dedication, can't manufacture genuine care, can't pretend your way into the kind of work that lasts. Children know, always. They can feel the difference between something made with love and something made for profit. They might not articulate it, might not consciously recognize it, but they know. They play longer with the toys made by true craftsmen. Return to them again and again. Keep them into adulthood. Pass them to their own children. The market toys, the ones made by frauds and opportunists, get broken or discarded within weeks. By 1790, there's a clear distinction emerging. On one side, the legitimate tradition, the true descendants of Peter's philosophy, working in dozens of cities, connected by shared values, even when they don't know each other. On the other side, the counterfeiters, the exploiters, the ones who heard a good story and tried to monetize it. The market, slowly but inevitably, separates them. The real work finds its audience. The fake work fades. And you realize something profound. Peter created more than toys, more than a tradition. He created a test, a filter, a way to identify who understands what truly matters and who doesn't. Because anyone can claim to be generous. Anyone can talk about working for others. Anyone can tell a good story. But actually doing it? Actually choosing anonymous work over recognition? Actually sustaining dedication across years and decades? That requires something rare, something precious, something that can't be taught, only discovered. And the people who discover it, the true imitators, they recognize each other instantly. Not through words or credentials or official affiliations, but through their work, through the quality of their creation, through the evidence of care embedded in every joint and paint stroke. That's the real legacy, not the legend, the work. In 1798, a Dutch painter named Frans de Groot unveils a masterpiece at a small gallery in Amsterdam. It's a massive canvas, 6 feet tall and 8 feet wide, dominating the entire east wall of the exhibition space. The painting depicts a windmill on a snow-covered hill under a dark winter sky. In the foreground, children play with toys. A boy races a wooden train through snow. 2 girls cradle dolls. A toddler reaches for a spinning top, face lit with wonder. Their breath fogs in the cold air. Their cheeks are pink. They're completely absorbed in play, unaware of anything beyond their immediate joy. In the background, barely visible through a window in the windmill, is the silhouette of an old man. Then over a workbench, hands moving, creating. The window glows with warm candlelight, the only source of light in an otherwise dark painting besides the pale winter sky. The painting is titled simply, The Spielgoat Maker, The Toy Maker. Critics are divided. Some call it haunting, evocative. A perfect blend of realism and symbolism. The technique is flawless. De Groot studied under masters in Paris and Rome, and it shows. Every snowflake is individually rendered. Every wooden toy is detailed enough to identify its type. The children's faces capture genuine emotion. Others find it disturbing. The composition is strange, the focus unclear. Are we meant to watch the children or the toy maker? The painting can't decide, which feels like a flaw. And the man in the window, he's too dark, too obscured. You can barely tell he's human. Could be a shadow, could be imagination. Frans attends the opening, but says almost nothing. When pressed about his inspiration, about who commissioned the piece, about what it means, he just shrugs. I saw it in a dream, he says. Had to paint it. That's all. But surely there's more, insists a critic. The composition is too deliberate. The symbolism too clear. You're depicting the Peter van der Meer legend, obviously. The toy maker in the windmill. But why? What's your interpretation? What are you saying about the story? Frans looks at the painting for a long moment. I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just showing it. What you take from that is your business. This non-answer frustrates the critics. They write reviews that are more about their own interpretations than about the actual work. Some see it as commentary on industrialization, the last craftsman, isolated, working against the tide of modernity. Others read it as religious allegory, the creator working in darkness while humanity plays in light, unaware of the source of their joy. Franz doesn't confirm or deny any interpretation, just moves on to his next project. The painting is purchased by a wealthy merchant named Cornelis van Houten. He hangs it in his private gallery and occasionally shows it to dinner guests, enjoying their reactions. Most find it unsettling. Something about the composition. The way your eye keeps moving between the children and the window. Between joy and isolation. Between product and producer. For 20 years, the painting remains private. Van Houten dies in 1818. His son inherits the collection, but has no interest in art. In 1820, he donates everything to the Rijksmuseum. Suddenly, the Spielgoed maker is everywhere. It's placed in the main gallery, reproduced in catalogs. Art students copy it as an exercise in composition and technique. By 1825, engravings of the painting are being sold in shops across Europe. It becomes one of those images that enters the cultural consciousness without people necessarily knowing where it came from or who painted it. The image becomes more famous than the artist. Frans de Groot fades from memory, but his painting endures. Tourists from across Europe visit the Rijksmuseum specifically to see it. Stand in front of it for minutes, sometimes hours, just looking, trying to understand what draws them. The painting does something peculiar. It replaces memory. People who never heard the original story of Peter van der Meer see the painting and construct their own narratives. They imagine who the old man is, why he works alone, what his relationship to the children might be. They don't know about the windmill outside your village. Don't know about the fire or the 40 years of hiding or the toys appearing in snow. They just know the image. And the image is enough. It gives them permission to wonder, to imagine, to construct meaning. By 1840, the painting has inspired others, imitators and variations. Hundreds of artists paint their own versions of toy makers in workshops, inspired by de Groot without necessarily knowing the deeper tradition behind it. The image multiplies, evolves, becomes a genre. You see a reproduction in 1843. You're 93 years old, nearly blind, but someone describes it to you in detail. The children, the toys, the figure in the window, and you start crying. Not from sadness, not from nostalgia exactly, but from the realization that Peter has been transformed completely. He's not a person anymore, not even a legend. He's an archetype, a symbol, an idea that exists independent of its origin. The painting doesn't depict the real Peter. Couldn't possibly. Frans de Groot never met him, never saw the windmill, never heard a first-hand account. But somehow, mysteriously, it captures something true, something essential. The isolation, the dedication, the relationship between creator and creation, between maker and user. It gets the feeling right even though the facts are wrong. And maybe that's more important. Maybe emotional truth matters more than historical accuracy. You think about this for weeks. About how stories transform, how legends mutate, how truth becomes symbol, becomes art, becomes something entirely new. And you realize this is how Peter survives, not through accurate historical records, not through careful preservation of facts, but through art that captures feeling, through images that transmit essence, through symbols that mean more than their literal components. Frans de Groot, painting from a dream, understood Peter better than Hendrik Jansen with his 847 pages of scholarly analysis, because art doesn't explain. It evokes. It doesn't answer questions. It asks them. It doesn't solve mysteries. It deepens them. And in doing so, It keeps the mystery alive longer than any history book ever could. The painting hangs in the Rijksmuseum still. Tourists photograph it. Art historians analyze it. Children point at it and ask questions their parents can't answer. And somewhere, somehow, you like to think Peter would approve. Not of the fame, not of the attention, but of the fact that people are still wondering, still imagining, still trying to understand what it means to create for others. That's immortality. By 1850, the nameless village finally gets a name. They call it Spielgodorp, Toy Village. Not creative, not poetic, but accurate. And accuracy matters when your entire economy depends on your reputation. The village has transformed completely. What was once a collection of fishing houses and farm cottages is now a thriving center of craft. 3 toy workshops employ over 200 people. Merchants come from across Europe to place orders. The toys are expensive, but worth it. Everyone agrees on this. They last generations, never break, maintain their beauty despite rough play. And in the center of the village, on the site where the old windmill once stood, they build a museum. It's modest. Just 3 rooms in a stone building with a slate roof. But it's enough. More than enough, really, for what needs to be preserved. The first room contains historical documents. Records of the fire in 1716. Parish records showing births, marriages, deaths, including the notation of Peter van der Meer's supposed death. Testimonies from villagers who found the toys in the snow or entered the windmill the Christmas morning in 1756. These accounts have been carefully transcribed and displayed behind glass. The second room shows the evolution of toy making in the village, displays tools from different eras, shows how techniques advanced, demonstrates the progression from individual craftsmen to organized workshops. It's educational, practical. The kind of room school groups get herded through while teachers explain about industrial development and economic change. The third room is different. It's smaller than the others, darker. A single window provides natural light. And in the center, displayed in a glass case that cost more than most people earn in a year, are the 12 toys from the wooden box. The soldier, the doll, the horse, the train, and 8 others, each perfect in its own way. They haven't aged, haven't faded. The paint is still vibrant, the wood still smooth. They look exactly as they did in 1762 when they were pulled from the ashes of the burning windmill. Some say that's impossible. Wood should dry and crack. Paint should fade. Nearly 90 years have passed. The museum curator, a woman named Margaretti, with sharp eyes and gentle hands, just smiles when people point this out. Peter's work was exceptional, she says. That's well documented. Around the walls of this third room are letters. Hundreds of them, written by people claiming to have received toys from Peter, or from someone inspired by Peter, or from someone who might have been Peter. Though by now that's chronologically impossible, unless he lived to be over 150 years old. The museum doesn't verify these claims, doesn't investigate or authenticate, just displays them, lets visitors decide. A woman from Berlin says a wooden horse appeared on her doorstep the night her son recovered from pneumonia in 1803. She was certain he would die. The horse was there when she checked on him at dawn. He was sleeping peacefully, fever broken, clutching the toy to his chest. She has no explanation, just gratitude. A man from Lyon swears a doll saved his daughter from drowning in 1819. She was playing near the river, slipped, fell in. When they pulled her out, unconscious, she was clutching a porcelain doll they'd never seen before. It floated somehow porcelain doesn't float, and she grabbed onto it instinctively. The doll kept her head above water long enough for rescue. A priest from Naples describes a wooden soldier that appeared on his church altar in 1827. No one placed it there. The church was locked. But there it was, standing at attention. Children who prayed there afterward said they felt protected, safe, like someone was watching over them. Are these Peter's toys? Almost certainly not. Definitely not. He'd be impossibly old, dead for decades at minimum. But the museum curator doesn't say that. Just displays the letters with a small notation. Unverified account. Historical interest only. Because the truth of the letters doesn't matter as much as what they represent. The continued belief that kindness exists. That anonymous generosity is possible. That somewhere, someone is working in darkness to bring light to others. You visit the museum in 1853. You're 96 years old. Can barely walk. Knee your great-grandson's arm to climb the 3 steps to the entrance. But you want to see it. Need to see it. Before you die, which will be soon, you can feel it. You need to witness what Peter became. Margarethe recognizes you immediately. Everyone in the village knows who you are. The last living person who actually saw Peter, who spoke to him, who was there that Christmas morning in 1756. Would you like me to guide you? She offers gently. You wave her off with one gnarled hand. I know the way. I know the story. I lived it. You move through the first 2 rooms quickly. Barely glance at the documents and tools. You've seen it all before. Lived it. You don't need reminders of history you experienced firsthand. The 3rd room, though. The 3rd room stops you. You stand in front of the glass case for a long time, just staring. Your vision is mostly gone, cataracts and age have stolen clarity, but you can still see shapes, colors. The red and gold of the soldier, the pale face of the doll, the brown wood of the horse. And suddenly, without warning, you're crying. Not sad tears, not grief, but something more complicated. Relief, maybe, or vindication. Or just the overwhelming weight of witnessing something impossible. A man you knew, briefly and incompletely, transformed into legend, into symbol, into something that outlasted him by nearly a century and shows no signs of fading. Margarethe approaches quietly. Stands beside you without speaking. Did you know him? She asks finally. Really know him? You wipe your eyes with a shaking hand. Nod. Once, a long time ago. Feels like another life. What was he like? You consider the question. How do you describe someone you met for maybe 20 minutes, but who changed everything? How do you capture the essence of a person who chose obscurity over recognition, isolation over community, work over rest? Stubborn, you say finally. Quiet, focused. He barely looked at us when we entered the windmill. Just kept working, like we were interruptions to something more important. Do you think he was real? Or just a story people needed to believe? You look at her, really look at her. She's young, maybe 30. Her whole life ahead of her. And she's asking the question that's haunted you for 97 years. Does it matter? You ask. She doesn't answer immediately. Thinks about it. I suppose not, she says finally. The toys are real. The tradition is real. The impact is real. Whether he was ghost or man or collective delusion, maybe that's beside the point. Exactly. You turn back to the case. I know he was real. I saw him, heard him, smelled the sawdust in his workshop. But even if I hadn't, even if I'd just heard the story secondhand, I'd still believe in what he represented, which is that some work transcends recognition, that the best things we do might be the things no one knows we did. That giving without expectation is not only possible but necessary. Margarethe is quiet for a moment. Then, there are people who say you're making it up, that you've told the story so many times you've convinced yourself it's true, that Peter never existed and the whole thing is just village mythology. You smile. Actually smile. Let them think that. Doesn't change anything. Doesn't it bother you that people doubt? Why would it? I know what I saw. And more importantly, I know what happened afterward. The tradition that grew, the workshops that opened, the thousands of children who played with toys made by people who learned from Peter's example, even if they never knew his name. You pause, gathering strength for what you want to say next. He won. You continue. That's what people don't understand. Peter van der Meer won, not by being remembered, though he was, not by being celebrated, though he is, but by creating something that outlasted him, a template for how to work, how to give, how to live. And you think that's enough? I think that's everything. You stay in the museum for another hour. Your great-grandson brings a chair so you can sit. You watch visitors come and go. Watch them read the letters, study the toys. Take their children by the hand and explain in simplified terms about the man who made toys in secret. And you realize this is your goodbye, not just to the museum, but to Peter, to the story, to the 97 years you've carried this memory. When you finally leave, you place your hand on the glass case. Just for a moment, a benediction, a thank you, a farewell. Margaretti sees but says nothing, just nods, understanding passing between you without words. 3 weeks later, you die in your sleep, peacefully, no pain. Just here one moment, gone the next. The village buries you near the museum. The marker is simple. Here lies a witness. They kept the story alive 175-71853. The dates are wrong. You were born in 1757, not 1756, but close enough. Memory is imperfect. History is approximate. What matters is the intention. 3 months after your funeral, on Christmas Eve 1853, something appears on your grave. A wooden toy, a rocking horse, hand-carved, painted red and gold, exactly like the ones in the museum, exactly like the one you saw Peter carve 97 years ago. Margaretti finds it Christmas morning while making her rounds of the village. She visits graves regularly, part of her self-appointed duties as museum curator and unofficial village historian. Leaves flowers, clears weeds, maintains dignity for the dead. Your grave is near the back of the cemetery, under an oak tree. Easy to spot because the earth is still fresh, mounded, not yet settled into the permanent depression all graves eventually become. The toy sits on top of the mound, perfectly centered, like someone placed it with deliberate care. Margaretti stops, stares, her breath catches. It's impossible. This toy shouldn't exist. She studied Peter's work for 15 years, knows every detail, every characteristic marking. The way he shaped hooves, slightly elongated, anatomically imperfect, but aesthetically pleasing. The way he painted thin layers, building color gradually. The precise angle he carved manie's always 45 degrees, always flowing left to right. This toy has all those characteristics, every single one. She picks it up with shaking hands, turns it over. On the bottom, carved in tiny letters, is a word, bedankt. Thank you. The same word, the same handwriting, the same style as the note found in the wooden box 91 years ago. Margaretti's mind races through possibilities. Someone in the village has been studying Peter's technique, practicing, got good enough to create a convincing replica, left it as tribute, as memorial, as continuation of tradition. That makes sense. That's logical. That's the only rational explanation. Except, she takes the toy to her workshop behind the museum, has tools there, magnifying glasses, references, everything needed for proper analysis. She studies the wood first, pine, but old pine, very old. The grain is tight, compressed, indicating slow growth. the kind you get from trees that grew in harsh conditions over many decades. Modern pine is different. Grows faster, weaker. You can see the difference if you know what to look for. She compares it to samples from the 12 toys in the museum. Takes splinters, tiny ones barely visible from permitted areas. Examines them under magnification. The grain pattern matches. Exactly. Impossibly. The paint next. She scrapes a microscopic sample. Tests it. The pigments are natural. Berry-based red. Clay-based ochre for the gold. Mixed with linseed oil and egg tempera as binder. No modern compounds. No synthetic dyes. Nothing that shouldn't be there. She compares the paint to samples from the museum toys. The chemical composition is identical, not similar. Not close. Identical. This toy was made with the exact same materials as toys created before 1762. But it's new. The varnish is barely dry. She can smell it. Can feel the slight tackiness when she presses her thumb against it. Margaretti sits at her workbench for 3 hours, just thinking, trying to rationalize what she's holding. Someone found old wood. Sourced historical pigments. Studied Peter's technique obsessively. Created a perfect forgery. But why? Why go to such effort? Why use materials that are difficult to acquire and expensive? Why leave it anonymously on a grave where it might never be found or appreciated? And more importantly, who? She knows every craftsman in the village, knows their skill levels, their techniques, their capabilities. None of them could produce work this precise, this perfect. She considers theft. Maybe someone stole one of the museum toys. Somehow, despite locks and guards and alarm systems installed just 5 years ago. But she checks. All 12 toys are accounted for, untouched. So what is she holding? Margaretti makes a decision. She won't publish her findings, won't announce the discovery, won't invite scholars to examine and debate and explain. She just places the toy in the museum, in the glass case, next to the original 12. Now, there are 13. She adds a small placard. Found December 25, 1853, origin unknown. Matches all characteristics of Peter van der Meer's documented work. No explanation available. That's all. Just facts. No speculation, no theory. Just a mystery, presented plainly. Visitors notice immediately. Ask questions. Margaretti gives the same answer to everyone. It appeared. We don't know how or why. We're simply preserving it. Some people are frustrated by this non-answer. Want explanation. Want certainty. Want the mystery solved. Others nod slowly, understanding that some questions don't have answers. Some mysteries are meant to remain. Within a month, the story spreads. Newspapers pick it up. Mysterious toy appears in Dutch village. Ghost of famous toymaker returns. Unexplained artifact baffles experts. Scholars descend on the village. Want to examine the toy. Run tests. Prove it's fake or authenticate it as genuine. Margaretti refuses all requests. It's not for sale. Not available for destructive testing. You can look at it. You can photograph it. But you cannot touch it. They threaten. Offer money. Invoke academic importance. She doesn't budge. Some things, she says calmly, are more valuable as mysteries than as solved problems. This toy means something to people precisely because we don't understand it. Explaining it would diminish it. Most scholars leave frustrated. A few understand. An elderly professor from Leiden shakes her hand and says, "You're right. Some magic should stay magical. The toy sits in the museum. People come from across Europe to see it. Stand in front of the case. Wonder, imagine, create their own explanations." And every year, on Christmas Eve, Margaretti closes the museum at sunset, goes home, sleeps, and every Christmas morning when she returns, there's a new toy. Sometimes on a grave, sometimes on the museum steps. Once, memorably, inside the locked museum itself, she has no idea how it got there. She stops trying to explain it after the third year, just accepts it, adds each toy to the collection. Now there are 16, then 20, then 25. By 1870, there are 37 toys in the case. An entire generation of impossible creations, each one perfect. Each one matching Peter's documented style. Each one inexplicable. Scholars have given up trying to solve it. The village has accepted it as part of their identity. Tourists expect it. Children ask about it. And Marguerite, now 63 years old, silver-haired and tired but still sharp, just smiles when people ask her what she thinks is happening. I think, she says carefully, that some work is too important to end, that some people are too dedicated to stay dead, that the line between physical and metaphysical is thinner than we like to believe. So you think it's really him? Peter? Still working after all this time? She shrugs. I think it doesn't matter who's making them. What matters is that they're being made, that the tradition continues, that someone somewhere cares enough to keep working, to keep giving, to keep reminding us that anonymous kindness is possible. But don't you want to know the truth? Marguerite looks at the case, at the 37 toys gleaming behind glass, at the centuries of mystery condensed into wood and paint and inexplicable persistence. No, she says finally, I really don't, because knowing would ruin it. And some things are too beautiful to ruin. The 20th century arrives with locomotives and telegraphs and photographs. With electricity and telephones and automobiles, the world speeds up. Distances shrink. Mystery becomes harder to maintain. The village still called Spielgodorp, though now officially recognized on maps and census records, tries to keep pace. The workshops modernize. Steam-powered lathes, assembly line techniques, mass production methods borrowed from American factories. Some people worry the old spirit is dying. That efficiency is replacing care. That quantity is overtaking quality. They're not entirely wrong. Then 1914 happens. The Great War devours Europe like a beast that can never be satisfied. Villages send their sons, their fathers, their brothers. The toy workshops close one by one as men leave for trenches, for mud, for mechanical slaughter on an unprecedented scale. The museum stays open, barely. Marguerite is 76 now, ancient, but refusing to close. Someone has to remember, she says. Someone has to keep the story alive while the world tries to destroy itself. Most days, no one visits. The toys sit behind glass, gathering dust, while outside the world burns. In 1916, exactly 200 years after Peter supposedly died the first time, a soldier returns to the village. His name is Willem, not the same Willem who started making toys in the 1760s. The Willem died decades ago. This is his great-great-grandson. Same name, different person, different war. He's 23 but looks 50, shell-shocked. Missing 2 fingers on his left hand, lost to shrapnel at the Somme. Can't work. Can't sleep. Can't look his mother in the eye without seeing the men he killed. The friends he watched die. The absolute meaningless horror of it all. The army gave him a medal. Said he was a hero. Sent him home to recover. He doesn't feel like a hero. Feels like a ghost. Like he died in that trench, and what came back is just a shell pretending to be human. One night, unable to bear the silence of his room, the weight of his own thoughts, he walks to the museum. It's closed, but the door is unlocked. It's always unlocked. Marguerite says locking it would betray everything the museum represents. Willem slips inside. The toys are still there. 37 of them now, plus the original 12. gleaming in the moonlight that streams through windows. Perfect. Untouched by war. Untouched by anything. Willem sits on the floor in front of the display case. Stares at the wooden soldier. The one Peter carved over 200 years ago. Still standing at attention. Still perfect. And he starts crying. Not quietly. Not the restrained tears of a man maintaining dignity. But the kind of crying that empties you out completely. The kind that feels like dying. Like finally releasing something you've been holding so long it became part of your body. When he finally stops, the sun is rising. And sitting beside him, though he doesn't remember her arriving, is Margarethe. She's ancient now, bent like a comma, skin like paper, but her eyes are still clear. "My grandmother," she says softly, "played with that soldier. She said it made her feel safe." Willem wipes his face with his remaining hand. "I don't feel safe anymore." "Don't think I ever will again." "No one does," Margarethe agrees. "No one who saw what you saw could. But that's why we need this." "Need them." She gestures at the toys. "I'm not a child. Can't just play with toys and forget." "No, but you can create. You can make something instead of destroying. You can add to the world instead of subtracting from it." "I can't make anything." "I can barely hold a spoon." Margarethe looks at his damaged hand, at the stumps where fingers used to be. "Then learn with 3 fingers instead of 5. Learn with your right hand if your left won't cooperate. Learn slowly if you can't learn quickly." She pauses. "But learn. Because the alternative is sitting in darkness remembering horror. And that's not living. That's just slow dying." She stands with difficulty, pats his shoulder, leaves him there as dawn fills the museum with pale light. Willem doesn't move for an hour. Just sits, thinks, feels something shifting inside him. Not hope exactly, not healing, but maybe the beginning of permission. Permission to try. Permission to be bad at something. Permission to fail and try again. He goes to the old workshop. The one that's been closed since 1914 when the last craftsman left for war. Finds tools covered in dust. Wood stacked in corners. Everything exactly as it was left. He picks up a knife. It feels wrong in his damaged hand. The grip is all off. His fingers don't close properly. He tries anyway. It's clumsy. Horrible. The knife slips and cuts his thumb. The wood splits. His proportions are completely wrong. What's supposed to be a horse looks like a deformed dog. He wants to quit. Wants to throw the knife through a window and go back to his room and surrender to the darkness. But he doesn't. Because for the first time since the sum, he's done something that didn't destroy, that didn't kill, that didn't add to the world's suffering. He's created something. Even if it's ugly, even if it's broken, it's new. It exists because he made it exist. That matters. He works for 3 weeks. 8 hours a day, slowly improving. The cuts become cleaner. The proportions better. His 3-finger grip becomes natural. Develops its own technique. He finishes his first actual toy. A horse. Lopsided. Uneven. The tail is crooked. The legs are different lengths. But it's complete. Finished. Real. He leaves it on the museum steps on Christmas Eve. 1916. Anonymous. No note. Margarethe finds it Christmas morning. Studies it. Notices the imperfections. The 3-finger grip marks in the wood. The evidence of struggle and persistence. She knows exactly who made it. But she doesn't say anything. Just places it next to Peter's toys. Behind the stained glass. Part of the same tradition. When visitors ask about it, she says, "That one's from someone who needed to remember how to create." By 1918, 15 other soldiers have joined Willem. Men with missing hands, missing eyes, missing pieces of themselves. They work in silence, carving, sanding, painting. They don't talk about the war. Don't compare traumas. Don't try to explain what can't be explained. They just make toys. And on Christmas Eve, they leave them around the village. Anonymous, unsigned, the way Peter taught them. Even though most never met him, never heard the original story firsthand, they understand it anyway. Because some truths don't need teaching, they just need witnessing. By 1930, something strange happens in America. The story of Peter van der Meer, filtered through 2 centuries of retellings, translations, emigration, and cultural adaptation, merges with other Christmas legends, with Father Christmas from England, with Santa Claus from Dutch tradition, with a dozen half-forgotten folk tales about gift-givers in red coats from Scandinavia, Germany, Austria, and slowly, imperceptibly, it crystallizes into something new, something recognizable. Santa Claus, not just any Santa, but the modern Santa, the specific version that dominates American popular culture, the one who works in a workshop, who makes toys in secret, who appears on Christmas Eve and vanishes by morning, who asks for nothing in return except perhaps milk and cookies. The image solidifies through advertising and department store displays and children's books. Coca-Cola runs ads featuring a jolly man in red, surrounded by elves, working in a toy workshop at the North Pole. Norman Rockwell paints him checking his list. Stories describe his secret factory where toys are made year-round. Sound familiar? The details are different, of course. Santa is fat and jolly, not thin and haunted. He has flying reindeer, not a windmill. He works with elves, not alone. He's magical and immortal, not human and mortal. He lives at the North Pole, not in the Dutch countryside. But the core, the essential story? A man who works in a hidden workshop, who makes toys in secret, who gives them away anonymously, who asks for nothing in return, who finds purpose in bringing joy to children. That's Peter. That's always been Peter. The legend has traveled across an ocean and transformed completely, but its DNA remains. In 1935, a journalist named Thomas Nast Jr., son of the famous cartoonist who helped create the modern image of Santa, visits Spielgodorp. He's researching Christmas traditions, writing a book about how various cultural practices merged into American Christmas celebrations. He finds Margarethe still alive. She's 95. Should be dead. Everyone she knew is dead. But she persists, stubborn as the oak tree that's grown through the museum's back wall, roots cracking the foundation. She sits with him in the museum, surrounded by Toy 73 now, accumulated over decades of Christmas mornings, and tells him everything. The whole story, from beginning to present, holds nothing back. Thomas writes furiously, asks questions, takes photographs of the toys, of the village, of the ruins of the windmill that still stand despite a century of weather. Do you think Santa Claus is based on your toy maker? He asks finally. Do you see the connection? Margarethe laughs. A dry, crackling sound. I think people needed a story. Multiple cultures, across centuries, all needed the same story. And Peter gave them part of it. What they did with that afterward ... She shrugs. That's not his responsibility. But doesn't it bother you that he's been commercialized? That Coca-Cola uses his essential story to sell soda? That department stores exploit the tradition for profit? Why would it? Margarethe shifts in her chair, bones creaking. The work is what mattered. The toys, the giving, not the credit, not the recognition. Peter spent 40 years working in complete secrecy. You think he'd be upset that people forgot his name? That was the point. But surely nothing. She interrupts, voice sharp despite her age. He made toys. Children played with them. That's the whole story. Everything else, the legend, the imitation, the commercial exploitation, the cultural adaptation, that's what humans do with good ideas. We spread them, transform them. Sometimes corrupt them, sometimes improve them. But the original impulse survives. Thomas underlines something in his notebook. So you're saying the commercialization doesn't matter? I'm saying it's inevitable, and maybe necessary. How else does a story survive 2 centuries? How else does it cross oceans and languages? Perfect preservation is death. Stories survive by changing, by adapting, by becoming whatever each generation needs them to be. She pauses, catching her breath. Besides, she continues, even in America, even with all the commercial nonsense, the core message survives. Santa gives without expecting return, works in secret, asks only that children believe in kindness. That's Peter. That's always been Peter. The rest is just decoration. Thomas stays in the village for 2 weeks, interviews everyone who will talk to him, examines records, studies toys, takes hundreds of pages of notes. His book, The Secret History of Santa Claus, is published in 1937. It's thorough, well-researched, traces the evolution of Christmas gift-giving myths across cultures and centuries, shows how Dutch Sinterklaas merged with English, Father Christmas merged with Germanic traditions, merged with commercial American innovation. The chapter on Peter van der Meer is the longest. 40 pages documenting his life, his work, his legend, and his transformation into archetype. But the conclusion Thomas reaches is simple. Every culture creates the stories it needs. America needed a gift giver who embodied generosity, work ethic, and reward for good behavior. Europe had dozens of candidates. Peter van der Meer was one. And perhaps his story anonymous giving, hidden work, lasting impact was the most powerful, the most adaptable, the most true to what people wanted to believe about themselves. The book sells moderately well. Not a bestseller, but respectable. It becomes required reading in some university folklore programs. And in Spiel-Godorp, life continues. The workshops still make toys. The museum still displays them. Tourists still come to see where the legend began. Margaretti dies in 1938. She's 98. Falls asleep in her chair in the museum and simply doesn't wake up. They find her surrounded by toys, holding a wooden horse in her lap, smiling slightly. The village buries her next to you, next to the oak tree. Another witness gone. Another keeper of memory returned to Earth. But the story doesn't end. Stories don't end. They just change tellers, change forms, change details while preserving essence. And somewhere in America, children wake up on Christmas morning to find presents under trees, stockings filled, cookies eaten, milk drunk, evidence of someone who came in darkness, worked in secret, left gifts, vanished, and they believe. Not in the commercial Santa, not in the Coca-Cola invention, but in the idea beneath it, the truth that survives all transformation. That somewhere, someone is working to bring them joy. That giving without recognition is possible. That kindness exists. That's Peter's real legacy, not his name, not his story, but the belief he made possible. The permission he gave humanity to imagine that generosity might be real. The Second World War comes and goes. The village survives. Barely. German occupation. Food shortages. Young men disappearing into resistance or collaboration. The museum closes. Toys hidden to prevent looting. But they survive. All of them. When the museum reopens in 1946, all 73 mysterious toys are exactly where they were left, plus one new one, a wooden soldier, found on the museum steps May 8, 1945, the day the war ended. No one knows who left it. No one questions it anymore. By 1950, the tradition has been codified, expected, almost mundane. Every Christmas, a new toy appears. The museum curator, a man now, Margarethi's great-nephew simply adds it to the collection and updates the count. The village thrives in the post-war boom, becomes a tourist destination. The workshops expand, employ 400 people, export toys worldwide. Authentic Spielgodorp craftsmanship becomes a selling point, a guarantee of quality. Some worry this commercialization betrays Peter's example, that making money from toys contradicts the spirit of anonymous giving. But others argue, people need to eat, need to work, need purpose, and making toys even for profit still brings joy, still serves children, still matters. The debate never resolves, just continues, generation after generation, each side certain they understand what Peter would have wanted. In 1975, the museum undergoes major renovation, modern climate control, better lighting, security systems. The toys are examined by experts, conserved, protected. Tests are run on the mysterious toys. Carbon dating, paint analysis, wood identification, trying once more to solve the unsolvable. The results are baffling. The wood dates to the 1700s. The paint pigments are historical. The techniques match documented 18th century methods exactly. But the toys are new, made recently. Within the past few years or decades, not centuries. It's impossible. The scientific evidence contradicts itself. The museum director, a woman named Sophia, sharp and skeptical, publishes the findings honestly. Doesn't try to explain or rationalize. Just presents the contradiction and admits, we don't understand. Some people claim fraud. Say the museum is perpetrating a hoax for tourist revenue. Demand investigation. The investigation finds nothing. No evidence of deception. No hidden workshop. No craftsman capable of reproducing 18th century techniques with such precision. Just toys, appearing annually, inexplicably. By 2000, there are 147 toys in the collection. The museum has expanded twice to accommodate them. They're displayed chronologically, showing subtle evolution in style while maintaining consistent quality. Art historians study them, notice patterns, see how the unknown maker adapts techniques over decades, incorporates new tools while maintaining traditional methods. It's like watching an artist develop across 2.5 centuries. Except that's impossible. In 2015, security footage finally catches something. December 25th, 3:47 a.m. A figure approaches the museum, tall, bent, moving slowly. Places something on the steps, leaves. The footage is reviewed immediately, enhanced, analyzed. The figure wears old clothing, a coat that looks 18th century, moves with the stiffness of extreme age, but the face is never visible. The camera angle is wrong, or the lighting fails at exactly the wrong moment, or the figure somehow knows exactly where to stand to remain obscured. It's frustrating, tantalizing, almost like the mystery is protecting itself. Experts examine the footage. Some say it's obviously fake, computer-generated, a publicity stunt. Others say it's genuine but proves nothing. Could be anyone in period costume. Performance art, elaborate prank. The debate rages online, goes viral. Millions view the footage. Everyone has an opinion. No one knows the truth. And on December 25th, 2016, another toy appears. A wooden horse. Beautiful, perfect, impossible. The museum director decides something radical. She removes the security cameras, all of them. We're done chasing explanations, she announces. Some mysteries should remain mysterious. Some magic should stay magical. We're a museum dedicated to wonder, not certainty. And wonder requires not knowing. This decision is controversial. Some board members resign. Some donors withdraw support. Some academics criticize it as anti-intellectual, but others understand, applaud. Donate specifically because the museum chose mystery over explanation. And you, though you died in 1853, would have approved, because you knew from the beginning, solving the mystery kills it. In 2025, the museum thrives. The village prospers. The tradition continues. Every Christmas, a new toy appears. Every year, the mystery deepens. Children visit and ask questions their parents can't answer. That's good. That's healthy. That's how wonder stays alive, through questions without answers, through possibilities rather than certainties. The museum curator Sophia's daughter, also named Margaretti, keeping the name alive, gives tours and tells the story. Not as fact or fiction, but as mystery, as invitation, as permission to believe in something larger than yourself. We don't know who makes the toys, she says. Could be one person, could be many, could be someone keeping a 2.5 century tradition alive. Could be something else entirely. We don't know, and that's okay. But don't you want to know? Children ask. I want to wonder, she answers. Wanting to know makes you close your fist around the question. Wanting to wonder lets you hold it gently. See the difference? On Christmas Eve 2025, the museum closes at sunset. Margaretti goes home, makes dinner, reads, goes to bed. She doesn't stay up watching, doesn't set traps or cameras or tests, just sleeps. Because she understands what all previous curators learned eventually. The mystery persists only because people let it. Christmas morning, she walks to the museum. Fresh snow has fallen overnight. Her boots crunch, her breath fogs. And there, on the museum steps, is a wooden toy. A rocking horse, hand-carved, painted red and gold. She picks it up carefully, turns it over. On the bottom, carved in tiny letters, bedankt, thank you. She smiles, carries it inside, places it with the others. 194 toys now, nearly 2.5 centuries of Christmas mornings, nearly 2.5 centuries of anonymous giving, nearly 2.5 centuries of refusing to end. She looks at the collection, at the rows and rows of toys behind glass, at the physical evidence of persistence, of dedication that outlasts human lifespans, of work that refuses to stop simply because it should be impossible. And she thinks about Peter van der Meer, the man she never met, the legend she inherited, the mystery she's chosen to protect rather than solve. Was he real? Did he actually survive the fire in 1716? Did he really hide in a windmill for 40 years? Did he truly leave toys in the snow on Christmas morning, 1756? Or was he always a story? A collective need manifesting as narrative? An idea that took human form just long enough to plant itself in cultural memory? She doesn't know. We'll never know. And has made peace with that. Because here's what she does know. The toys are real. The tradition is real. The impact is real. Children have played with these toys. Soldiers found healing through making them. Communities formed around the shared value of anonymous giving. Lives were changed by the example of someone who worked without recognition. That's not mythology. That's not legend. That's measurable impact rippling across centuries. And if Peter van der Meer was invented, if the entire story is beautiful fiction, then humanity invented something profound, something worth preserving, something that speaks to our deepest hopes about who we might be capable of becoming. Maybe that's enough. Maybe inventing goodness is just as valuable as inheriting it. Margaretti places the new toy in the case carefully, adjusts the lighting so it catches the red and gold paint just right, steps back, studies the effect. Perfect. Behind her, she hears footsteps. A family entering the museum. Father, mother, 2 children. The youngest, maybe 6, runs ahead, presses his face against the glass, eyes wide with wonder. How many are there? He asks. 194, Margarete answers. Who makes them? We don't know. But that's impossible. Everything comes from somewhere. Everything has an explanation. Margarete kneels down so she's at the child's eye level. Most things do, she agrees. But not all things. Some things remain mysterious. And that's okay. That's good, even. Because mystery teaches us humility. Teaches us that the world is bigger and stranger than we can fully understand. But I want to know. The child insists with the certainty only the young possess. Of course you do. That's natural. That's human. But sometimes the wanting to know is more valuable than the knowing itself. Because as long as you're wondering, you're engaged. You're curious. You're open to possibilities. She pauses, choosing her next words carefully. The moment we know for certain who makes these toys, what will happen? We'll nod. Say, oh, okay. File it away as solved. Move on to the next mystery. The wonder dies. The magic evaporates. All that's left is facts. And facts, while important, don't keep you up at night imagining. Don't make you dream about what might be possible. The child considers this. So you're saying not knowing is better than knowing? I'm saying mystery is a gift. And we should treat it as such. Hold it carefully. Preserve it. Not because we're afraid of truth, but because we value wonder more than certainty. The child turns back to the toys, stares at them with new appreciation, not trying to solve them now, just experiencing them, letting them be what they are. Beautiful, impossible, real. The family eventually moves on to other exhibits, other stories, other wonders. Margarete stays with the toys a while longer, as she does every Christmas morning. Bearing witness, keeping vigil, maintaining the space where mystery can survive in an age that demands explanation for everything. Her phone buzzes. Text message. A journalist from New York. Another request for interview. Another attempt to finally solve the mystery of the Spielgodorp toys. She deletes it without responding. Outside, snow begins to fall again. Soft, silent, covering the village in white, making everything clean and new and possible. Margarete thinks about all the people who've stood where she's standing, all the curators and witnesses and believers who maintained this tradition, who chose mystery over certainty, who protected wonder from explanation. They're all gone now, dead for decades or centuries, but their choice persists. The decision they made to let something remain unknown echoes forward through time, reaching her, reaching beyond her to whoever comes next. That's immortality too. Not your name surviving, but your choices surviving. The values you embodied continuing long after your body returns to Earth. She thinks about Peter van der Meer, whether he was man or myth or something in between, whether he's still somehow working impossibly, incomprehensibly, or whether he died centuries ago and what continues is simply the idea he planted, the permission he gave, the template he provided for how to work and give and live. Both possibilities feel true. Both feel insufficient. The reality is probably something else entirely, something she lacks the language or concepts to even imagine, and that's perfect. That's exactly as it should be, because the best stories, the ones that last, they resist simple categorization, refuse to be fully explained or completely understood. They remain alive precisely because they remain mysterious, because every generation can interpret them differently, can find new meanings, can adapt them to new context while preserving the essential core. Margarete locks the museum at sunset. The winter sky is already dark, stars visible between clouds. The village lights warm and golden in windows. She walks home through snow, past the workshops where toys are still being made, not mysteriously now, but honestly, openly, commercially. Past the square where children play. past the cemetery where generations of witnesses sleep, past the ruins of the old windmill, barely visible now under decades of growth. Ivy covers the stone. Trees grow through cracks, nature reclaiming what was once human space. But if you look carefully, if you know what you're looking for, you can still see it. The foundation, the outline, the ghost of what was. And if you're very quiet, if you listen with more than ears, you might hear something. Not quite sound, not quite imagination. Something in between. The faint, rhythmic tapping of knife on wood. Of hands that refuse to stop working. Of dedication that transcends death and time and probability. Or maybe you hear nothing. Maybe it's just wind and wishful thinking. Projection and hope and the human need to believe in continuity beyond cessation. Does it matter which? Margaretti doesn't think so. Not anymore. After 15 years as curator, after a lifetime in this village, after absorbing the story so completely it lives in her bones, she's learned. The truth isn't whether Peter van der Meer still carves in darkness somewhere impossible. The truth is that people need to believe he might. Need to believe that dedication, that profound, doesn't simply end. That work that matters continues beyond individual lives. That the best of humanity, our capacity for selfless creation, isn't extinguished by death, but transformed, perpetuated, passed forward like flame from candle to candle. Whether that happens literally or metaphorically doesn't change its power, doesn't diminish its impact, doesn't make it less true in the ways that matter most. She reaches her door, stops, turns back to look at the village, at the lights and smoke and life. At the community built on a ghost story that might be real, or might be beautiful fiction, or might be something that transcends that binary entirely. And she smiles. Because tomorrow, someone in one of those lit windows will wake up on Christmas morning, will find a toy they didn't expect, will experience a moment of pure wonder, will feel, however briefly, that the world is kinder and stranger than they thought possible. And that matters. That's real. That's measurable. Undeniable. Everything else, who made it, how it appeared, whether physics allows it, all of that is secondary to the simple fact of joy received, of kindness experienced, of wonder preserved. Margaretti goes inside, makes tea, sits by her fire, and thinks about the toy she'll find next year, and the year after, and all the years after that, until someone else inherits this duty, this privilege, this burden of protecting mystery in an age of answers. The snow falls outside. The fire crackles. The village sleeps. And somewhere in a windmill that no longer exists, in a workshop beyond time, in the space between story and history, hands move with ancient precision. Knife meets wood. Shavings fall like snow. Paint is mixed from berries and clay and linseed oil. The toy takes shape slowly, patiently, with the kind of care that can only come from work that's its own reward. Or maybe that's not happening. Maybe it's just a story we tell ourselves, a collective delusion, a beautiful lie. Does it matter? Does it change anything? Does it make the toys less real? The tradition less valuable? The impact less profound? Margaretti doesn't think so. And in the morning, when she walks to the museum through fresh snow, when she finds another impossible toy waiting on the steps, she'll pick it up with the same reverence she always does. She study it with the same wonder, add it to the collection with the same ceremony, tell visitors the same story with the same intentional ambiguity. And she'll protect the mystery for another year, another generation, another iteration of the same essential truth, that some work transcends the worker, that some gifts outlive the giver, that the best things we create might be the things we never sign. That giving without recognition is not only possible, but holy. That dedication without expectation is the purest form of love. that work done in darkness can bring light to the world. That's the story. That's the truth. That's the lesson Peter van der Meer, whether he lived once or never old, lives still taught humanity. Everything else is just decoration, just details, just a beautiful, necessary mystery that keeps us wondering, keeps us hoping, keeps us believing that somewhere, always, someone is working to bring joy to children, forever, and ever, and ever. If you made it this far, you're either deeply moved or deeply unsettled. Either way, the story worked. Subscribe before next Christmas, when we'll explore another impossible thing that happened in the past. Another mystery that refuses to be solved. Another truth that's more real than facts. Some gifts don't come in boxes. Some arrive as stories. And this one, like all of Peter's toys, was made just for you.